The team at Inti Creates were the minds behind some of the greatest Mega Man games ever released. While developing the series' downloadable titles, Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10, they also developed one of the stronger offshoots of the franchise with the Mega Man Zero quadrilogy, which, yes, is a word I just invented. These games were brutally challenging, and levels consisted of instant death traps, leaps of faith, and insurmountable bosses requiring even the most dedicated series veterans to be fluent with its complex RPG and action mechanics. Though, if players stuck through, they were rewarded with one of the greatest collection of titles ever released on a handheld, with a polished and satisfying gameplay loop and a strong-hearted story. Inti Creates has, of course, kept themselves busy since Mega Man with the Gunvolt franchise and Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. With these titles, they repeated their massive triumphs on Nintendo handhelds again on the Nintendo Switch, resulting in the culmination of that success with Dragon Marked for Death. As the memories of the Grand War between gods and dragons are first becoming lost to myth, the history of Dragon Marked for Death begins. After an age of insurmountable conflict, the astral dragons had succumbed to the holy weapons of the Celestials. The Celestials then purified the dragons' corpses and used them to re-establish the land that was destroyed by these battles. After this, they left, but not without leaving 2 moons in the sky to observe over humanity. Within the casualties were many humans plunged into the abyss of death. Atrum, the largest of the dragons, offered them his blood, sacrificing the remainder of his life to save these humans. In Dragon Marked for Death, you play as one of 4 humans that are of this lineage, the Dragon Blood clan. You'll be faced to do a myriad of quests and eventually build up your respect in the village, eventually standing up against the Divine Family, a group of humans who are of an aristocratic cult that worships the long-gone Celestials and the ones who exiled you, due to the dragon blood flowing through your veins. As such, this dark fantasy setting and story setup is realized with an incredible pixel art, an animation that suits it wholeheartedly. Dragon Marked for Death is a title which feels like the lost spiritual successor to the Mega Man Zero games. There's quite the distinction, however, as Inti Creates takes the formula of co-op fantasy action titles such as the classic Guardian Heroes and the hand-drawn Vanillaware game Dragon's Crown and utilizes the team's impeccable skills of mastering every facet that makes the side-scrolling action genre enjoyable, blending excellent music, visuals, and gameplay into a co-optional, yes, another word I just invented, action game that ends up being one of the most difficult yet rewarding games to come to the Nintendo Switch. The missions in Dragon Marked for Death feels familiar when considering that this was the same team that brought you the Mega Man Zero series. The quests consist of convoy missions, rescue missions, or open-ended levels that culminate in a boss battle and are challenging due to their time limit and the relentless skill required in taking down enemies. The first level took me almost 4 tries until I finished it. Fights require to not only manage health throughout the overwhelming gauntlet of enemies leading up to a boss, but also require you to quickly complete the level to a point you must learn every intricacy of their design. Ultimately, however, these are rewarding experiences that require you to internalize attack patterns in a way that provides satisfactory gameplay. If you're finding fights difficult, you may find the game being much easier with a helping hand, as I eventually began to finish levels without any deaths just due to the inclusion of a second player. The quests in Dragon Marked for Death are aided by coherent level design and are considerably replayable under numerous difficulty adjustments that can be matched with your party's current level, as well as how vastly different the playable characters are. As such, the craft of Dragon Marked for Death's gameplay is its strongest facet, since it respects the player's ability and keeps the game from feeling repetitive due to the depth in its combat. Yet, a few things must be explained before you jump into Dragon Marked for Death, as while the game features 4 characters, the model of purchase might be slightly confusing. The game is fully accessible for only $14.99 and comes in 2 separate packs. Frontline Fighters pack contains the Empress, who while wielding a sword in her left hand, has a right hand which is a transmogrified dragon that breathes fireballs and can also be used mid-combo as a heavy sword. This was the character I spent the most time playing with, and I suggest using it if you plan on playing this game single player, as it seemed the most balanced for the numerous situations of combat, as well as platforming, with the warrior, who is a much tankier character meant to take damage while also building up slow and powerful attacks. I found his character mostly useful in multiplayer, as supporting friends with his area of effect healing abilities proved more useful than in his single outings. As well, the other pack, which is titled the Advanced Attackers Pack, includes the Shinobi, whose traversal mechanics and combos are incredibly powerful. However, he is a glass cannon. I found him effective in both single player and multiplayer, as the variety of combos left a lot for me to experiment with, but I also was down in only a couple hits. This pack also includes the most difficult fighter to use, which is the Witch, who requires the player to memorize long strings of button presses in order to cast spells to either attack or heal. I found her best utilized with a full multiplayer party, that is until the player grasps and memorizes the magic mechanics. As well, it's important to realize that while Dragon Marked for Death has a variety of different multiplayer options, none support cooperative play on a single system. There's the ability to play over the internet or a local connection with separate systems for each player, but no option for split screen. This may be a deal breaker for some looking for a primarily multiplayer experience, but due to the low cost of entry for players, it shouldn't be a deterrent. The only other gripe I have with the game is that I walked to a creature which was obviously a weird kangaroo dog creature, and the game informed me that it was actually a horse, and that this squid monster boss is the eldritch horror known as Cthulhu. Apart from the game's price structuring, there's a great deal of enjoyment to be had with Dragon Marked for Death. The opportunity for these industry veterans to be at the top of their abilities and create a magnum opus is a blessing to the creators and those that end up playing this game. This team has been breathing new life into many franchises with great attention of detail to their technique, and it's about time that they're able to make their first step into their truly fresh and original franchise. As such, Dragon Marked for Death is one of the most rewarding side-scrolling games I have ever played, and it's easily suggestible due to its immense polish.